Brigadier Ed Butler's here, former commanding officer, of course, of the SAS. Ed, a very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
Good to talk to you. Thanks very much for joining us. We spoke a couple of weeks ago about the government's treatment of some SAS veterans. There's a campaign now been started up because ex-Special Forces chiefs, and including yourself, I think, are demanding that these veterans who battled the IRA are protected from prosecution. We spoke about it the other day, but what's happening now?
Well, what's happening now, Mike, and thanks very much for having me on, and I think big thanks also to the Daily Mail for highlighting this in yesterday's paper.
Yeah.
What this government is doing is repealing the former government's Legacy Act, which in essence shielded former Northern Ireland veterans from prosecution for historic incidents, which some refer obviously to witch hunts. Now, the government appears to be taking out some parts of that Legacy Act, called the Remedial Order, apparently, under the Human Rights Act of 1998. And there's two main issues on that. And one is that they're going to take out those protections for our veterans, our Special Forces veterans, from current and future inquiries. But they're also going to make it easier for former IRA members and their families to sue the government for what they would say was unlawful killings.
Mm. And that is absolutely outrageous, isn't it? Because how can you even judge an unlawful killing from this far away when, one, you weren't there, two, you haven't even spoken to some of the people involved? And I was talking to somebody about this last night who told me that some of the veterans who are being asked to give evidence to this inquiry and to look into what actually happened haven't even got legal representation.
Well, I don't know about individual cases. I know that in some cases, people are taking out private legal advice, but others are getting the support from MOD lawyers, certainly those who've had time in the special services.
Right.
But I think what the issue is here, Mike, is that we've got incidents now which are being re-examined 20, 30, 40 years after the event, when they've already gone through a legal process, the police investigations, the RUC as it was then, now the PSNI, but also through a coroner's court, who said there was no case to answer. So now the iniquity of this is that former SAS, SBS, other special service people are being brought back to court for something which was no case to answer 30, 40 years ago. Mm. And that, to me, is just not being right. It's not right.
No, absolutely not. There's a petition on the Parliament website which is demanding protection for the veterans. It's reached, I think, something like 140,000 signatures. I know we spoke to an MP yesterday, Mark Francois, who's also involved in representing this particular terrible sort of destruction of justice, really. And he was saying that a lot of people have signed the petition since he mentioned it yesterday. So we'll give him another opportunity to do that today. What sort of help can people give you as part of the campaign? What can they do?
Well, I think first off, to sign that petition would be great. I mean, I think it's 140,000 plus.
Yeah. If
we could get it to 250,000 by August, that'd be terrific. And if we could get it to 1 million by the 9th of November, when the petition closes, that would really show the strength of support from ordinary men and women who actually absolutely believe and back our armed forces. Yeah. I think secondly, they could approach and write to their local MPs saying, what are you doing about it? Mm. And thirdly, if they're interested in this, what is good as a result of the petition reaching over 100,000 is that there's going to be a 3-hour debate in Parliament on the 14th of July. And this will hopefully put more pressure on the government that you can't have former servicemen and women being prosecuted for incidents which took place 30, 40 years ago, after a law which didn't exist at the time has been brought in. That just doesn't make sense to me, and I think that is legally and certainly morally unjust.
Yes, definitely speaking. And Keir Starmer talks a lot about how he, absolutely reveres the armed forces. He was talking about the defence review, spending more money, getting up to 5% of GDP for 2035. It's all quite a long way off. But it's a kind of hypocritical position to hold, is it not, for him to allow this kind of prosecution to go ahead?
Absolutely, Mike. I mean, the morale of the armed forces and in the special services, I'd say, is not good. These incidents, Mike, which when they take place, if you're asked to be called forward, and I have personal experience of this. I was and 4 other of my colleagues had to go to a court in Belfast in 2012 for an incident which we'd been involved in the early 90s. We were being accused of murder and being part of a government shoot to kill policy at the time. Fortunately, there was, again, no case to be found. But for 9 months running up to that court case, it was extremely demanding, emotionally, mentally, physically, on all of us, a great distraction, not just on us, but also on our families. And fortunately, we did get some very good, as was then, QC support. But this has got to change, because unless you have the backs of your armed forces, your men and women who serve this country, they go on extraordinarily difficult missions in very difficult places. You've got to back them from cradle to grave. It's not just about coming out with strategic and political platitudes. You've got to be there demonstrating practical action and supporting your men and women from cradle to grave.
Yes, absolutely. And one other story that I wanted to bring up with you, which I saw broke last night on the Times website, and it's a rather chilling story. It's about Keir Starmer gagging senior health officials, military leaders and even the head of the civil service from speaking openly in public. And I wonder whether this particular case this story that we're talking about will be affected. It's an edict that's been issued across Whitehall. Downing Street has warned public sector officials not to talk at open events where their comments have not been vetted in advance. And I know from the last time you and I spoke, a lot of people were really refreshed by what you said and astonished that you were saying some of the things that other people hadn't said before. And these new rules that have come in now will stop military leaders now, not yourself obviously, but military leaders who are current military leaders from speaking out about these things.
Yeah, I think it's really concerning, Mike, that the government, whether it's a prime minister or others, does not have the confidence in the service chiefs, the head of the army, the navy, the air force, and the chief of defence staff, that they cannot go on and publicly speak, whether it's through the media or write articles, putting the case forward about the people who serve this country. And to me, that's just not right. You know, you've got to trust the people. It doesn't matter whether it's a senior officer or the ordinary rifleman on the street. Trust goes both ways, and you've got to be able to demonstrate and have confidence in your leadership team.
Yes, and you also got to be able to tell the truth about what happened, surely. And I mean, you know, the problem with a lot of what this government now does is it sort of obfuscates the truth. And, you know, if you're part of their team, you're not allowed to sort of differ from any view that they've got, which I think is unhealthy in a democracy.
Yeah, I think, you know, we've got to be careful here. You know, these the inquiries which are going on, and I think, you know, we need to treat the Northern Ireland one and the Afghan inquiry as one and the same. They're slightly different circumstances, but these are all going through a due legal process, and that process must be allowed to run its course. So I'm not expecting the government to come out and saying this didn't happen or that didn't happen, but what they should be saying is that we support our armed forces personnel. There is an inquiry going on, whether it's an historic one in Northern Ireland or in Afghanistan. Let the judicial process run its course, but don't allow other people, third parties, speculation, some in the media, to sensationalize what went on. Let it go. Let that process happen.
Yes, I think that would be sensible for everybody. Brigadier Ed Butler, great to talk to you. Thanks very much indeed. Brigadier Ed Butler, former commanding officer of the SAS, now chairman of We Served, of course, which is that organisation which does help an awful lot of veterans. Look it up, weserved.com, if you haven't done so already and if you're looking for some help.